President of the United Hood Nation. Asna Lee is the Secretary of the United Hood Nation and the Parliamentarian.
Hi.
And your name is?
Tasha Carter.
So tell us in 30 seconds or less, what is it that you do best and why do you do it?
I network and I market best just because I have so much time that I've been doing it, working in radio and television and now in entertainment by managing artists, so that's what I do.
Excellent. So you're in networking and marketing.
Yeah.
Want to introduce yourself and explain what you're doing over there? So?
Oh, yes. First, let me untie myself with our audience. I'm Andrew Williams Jr., so it's excellent. Very pleased to meet you. Mr. Carson has now reinvited me to join the Communications Committee for the United Hood Nation, but I'm doing so as a representative of Universal Citizens Media Network, UCI.TV, specifically Lady Alicia Hamilton. Universal Citizens Media Network, we actually are providing citizen journalists with the opportunity to share their narratives with the world. So we believe that it's important that we use our telephones, for example, right, for more than just being consumers. The idea is for us to be producers of content as well. And so that's one of the purposes I'm having here tonight. I got his permission to live stream this to a wider audience so that those people that aren't able to physically be here this time can now see what's going on, if they so choose to participate or follow through after that.
Come on down, get the next winner for the Price is Right. Sign in, grab a piece of a packet, and introduce yourself, sir. Tell us your name, what it is that you do best, and why you do it.
Oh, but let me just tell you, sir, I am live streaming this, so with your permission, I'll include your introduction. So
that is a good point. So we are being video.
We're live streaming it to Facebook, but which will be I'll then download it and put it on the Universal Citizens Media Network for wider exposure.
What's your Facebook page?
Andrew Williams Jr.
Okay.
So my name is Nahasi Lee, and I'm the Secretary of the United Hood Nation and responsible for the Chair of the Communications Committee. And whatever he just said relative to communications and what Brad indicated in regards to our need to expand our committee opportunity and options, we'd like to invite you to put your name here so we can contact you to come to our first official Communications Committee meeting of 2020.
Which will be next week. Right here.
We started.
We upstairs
10 minutes late already.
the room where we can have communication.
If available.
It's upstairs. This is LRH's place.
No problem.
Are you in communications?
Am I in communication?
Yes.
No, sir.
You're about to,
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
with your auditorium voice.
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Yeah, of course. My name is Kevin Williams.
I guess I can get
I
closer.
basically work for the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. I'm an industrial electrician, and that's pretty much my scope.
Excellent, excellent. Well, welcome to United Hood Nation. Again, my name is Brad Carson. I'm the president of United Hood Nation. The purpose of this meeting is to go over all of our agreements that we've already have made over the last 3.5 years, and to catch you up.
Okay.
If you have any questions or concerns or even comments, this is the time and the place to do it. We try and keep everything real short because we have about 2 hours of information.
Okay.
So we're going to go over various different concepts. We're going to stack those concepts together, and we're going to call it a construct. and then we're going to try and answer all your questions within that time.
Gotcha.
So the history of United Nation was that on July the 5th, 2016, Alton Sterling's death went viral. Boom. It's the whole police brutality type of thing. The next day, Philando Castile's death went viral. The whole world is getting ready to erupt. The next day after that, Micah Johnson, an ex-military guy, killed 5, maybe 7, injured 9 Dallas police officers. So you remember that? Boom, 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 all in a row.
Definitely.
Black lives marching.
Yes.
Blue lives say Blue Lives Matter.
Right.
And now, at ground zero,
Yes.
All lives matter.
all lives matter. But there was a big, big conflict. Snoop Dogg, who's a Crip, Game, the rapper Game, who's a Blood, got on the phone. They contacted Minister Tony Muhammad, Nation of Islam.
Yes.
He contacted the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, and they essentially did a march. They called it Hunt. Don't hunt me anymore.
Okay.
They went down to LA City Hall.
Right.
And he brought down here the next week, July the 17th, the mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti, the chief of police, for lack of a better term, 2,000 or 3,000 real Crips and Bloods
Yes.
were here. And then they signed a ceasefire agreement. Wasn't a peace agreement, it was a little less than that.
Right.
You know, and then we essentially have been meeting here ever since
Okay.
for 3.5 years.
How often?
We meet here the first Thursday of every month for first-time guest orientations, so we can explain all the agreements that we've already agreed to over the last 3.5 years, and to catch everybody up. It's almost like a new members class.
Right.
Then we have other meetings as well that you can join, such as the Communications Committee
Okay.
that Ms. Carter just signed up for, apparently. You've been recruited for, too. But you respectfully declined. With that said, well, so that's our background and our history.
Okay.
All right, flip the page over. So we also so our purpose is also to stop the violence and increase the peace, to structure the community to be in support of that ceasefire, to give, for lack of better terms, the Crips and Bloods an alternative, legitimate, moral, and ethical form of income, so they can put this down and put this and have this.
Okay.
So they said, a bunch of OGs said that if they had this, a legitimate, moral, and ethical form of income, that then they would police their own community, grab this culture, and bring them over to this side, so that they can police themselves and then police the whole. Because the Crips and Bloods have killed more black men, or has killed more black people, than the KKK. All of that's got to stop. That's just. With that said, so our function is to structure the community to be in support of the ceasefire and essentially create a legitimate, moral, and ethical form of income, a local sustainable economy. All right. So we have core values. Flip the paper over, look at the core values. There's 9 of them. So several hundred of us have got together and essentially voted on these 9 core values. Go ahead and take a minute and somebody read that off for the live streamers for us.
Well, communications?
Okay, compassion, forgiveness, honesty, integrity, love, loyalty, respect, tolerance, and unity.
Unity is number 1. Of course, we all have to come together to make this happen. All right, let's move on down. So with our core values, we have what's called also a code of conduct based on those 9 core values. Anything that's not in those 9 core values is not reflected in our conduct. We also are going to have an ethics committee to deal with it. There's 2 basic rules that we have already agreed to. No third-party conversations. No he said, she said stuff that we used to do in elementary school and they call it middle school now.
Mhm.
That means I can't whisper in your ear about her and then I go over and whisper in your ear about him.
Mhm.
That's out. We don't do that. That is the number 1 rule. Because with this is more of a movement, and then all movements have been destroyed or divided by third-party conversations. She said, she said. So we're trying to avoid that. Second rule, second mandatory, so we have a whole video about that you're going to be required to see if you choose to be a member. The second thing is collaboration. We have a whole video on collaboration. So that's also going to be mandatory. So we want to partner and collaborate with everybody in an all-in model or all-inclusive model. We call it AIM.
Mhm.
To everyone that has the spirit of collaboration.
Gotcha.
And essentially to be a member, we've also agreed that it's going to be like a Costco type of model where you pay $50 membership annually. All right, turn the page over. We got any questions on that so far?
None.
All right. Our strategic planning questions that have been asked and answered. March the 2nd, 2017. Go ahead and read that off for our streamlined audience.
Am I not first?
Nope.
Okay.
We help you out here.
Okay.
We're going backwards.
Okay. Let's see. Who are we? What is?
Yep.
Okay. Who are we? What is United Hood Nation? United Hood Nation is a collaboration between the community and service providers to facilitate peace, jobs, and careers, education and literacy, and leadership training to achieve a healthy, thriving, successful community. What we do, we've created a generational, cooperative, organizational entity that is scalable and sustainable to increase a healthy income base for members, participants, and the community at large. Why we do it? So that we can create jobs, increase peace, create generational wealth, enhance education, and increase literacy. What do we measure for success? Statistics measuring increase in employment rates, decrease in violent crimes, increase in K-12 completions, increase in tech school enrollments, increase in tech school completions, increase in community college enrollment, increase in community college transfers to four-year institutions, increase in community college completions, increase in master's and postdoctorate enrollment, increase in master's and postdoctorate completions, increase in home ownership, decrease in recidivism?
Yes.
Increase in tax base, increase in business ownership, decrease in welfare, increase in civic engagement, etc. How do we pay or monetize it? Brad said he was getting the initial $100 million donated. Members pay in cash or kind to join co-op, promote our success to get more support. Based upon stats, we can obtain further funding. Co-op pays for itself and more.
So we're going to explain the structure of a co-op. And the definition of recidivism is the person that's released from jail or prison. Recidivism is the rate in which they return back to jail or prison. Mm-hmm. Any questions on our strategic planning questions that have been asked and answered? That's our fearless leader right there, Mr. Bob Adams.
Hello.
Hey, Bob.
And so you remember the ethics committee?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's the chair right there.
Okay.
Ethics. ETHICS.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a subject and it's very important. We right into just what this man is talking about now. It's really important. It keeps everybody and everything in alignment because you can trust one another. And if you start to not trust someone, then you find out why they're not to be trusted and pull the strings and clean it up. It's really simple.
Absolutely. That's the whole base is the basis of this whole movement. And without that, we're not gonna have anything. We're not gonna go anywhere. What do we measure for our success? Basically, we want to increase everything that's good and decrease everything that's bad. Let's just summarize it like that. And then, did you notice the $100 million? So we're not playing around. We're going for the win.
Donated, huh?
Well, the donated was tongue in cheek. The other part was generational wealth. So it's a wealth building model. You got any questions, comments, concerns, issues? All right, flip the paper over. Now we're going to talk about starting a co-op, because that's the structure we're using. It says example starting a, and you see there's 28 questions there. So we already asked and answered those 28 questions. And you only have 30 seconds to read them.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Starting now. You can read them to yourself. We're not actually going to.
And of course, we can take this home and read it more in detail at a later time.
You said you could take it home and read it?
At a later time, yes, after your 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. But yeah.
So these are the questions that we need to.
Have been asked and answered.
These are questions that have been asked and answered before you have a lawyer, before you have a meeting with a lawyer on the structure of the United Nations.
Okay.
So since they've already been answered, are you already scheduled to meet with the lawyer? Or?
We've scheduled many meetings with the lawyer. We have a lawyer. Yes. We've done all that. We're trying to get you to catch up to us. All right, we good? So these are the 28 questions to ask and answer before you have a meeting with your lawyer. And yes, we do have a co-op lawyer. All right, next page. Oh, you're right. Alright, so everything that we do now is going to be based on meeting everyone's needs. And how a basic construct of our model is, we want to know what you do best. We want to know what you do best. We want to know what you do best. And we want you to do what you do best. And then hopefully within our group, our circle, what you do best will cover what she needs the most. When she needs it the most. And what you do best will cover what he needs the most. When he needs it the most. And what you need is all based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Everybody has these needs. Everybody. And we want to meet these needs in the highest order of which they occur in somebody's life. And we want to match those needs from within our strengths of what we do best, both individually and as an organization, and then ultimately collectively as a community to meet everybody's needs. So let's go over Maslow's hierarchy of needs real fast. I'll start it off since it's my favorite. At the very, very basic, everybody needs air. What comes after air? Water, food, clothes on your back, and a roof over your head. This is my favorite part right here. Oh, it doesn't really say. Oh, yes, it does. It says sex.
Procreation.
And that's on
all the species.
And so as we move up the ladder from our basic physical needs, and it goes to our bodily, basically it goes from body, soul to spirit as a whole person. So we have to cover all that as we move up this ladder. Gotcha. All right. There she is. That's Dr. Shima over there, signing right there. Dr. Shima is the vice president, and she is the chair over external affairs of the United Nations. All right, we good on meeting each other's needs and how we plan on doing that?
Yes. Some of them, yeah.
Let me put it another way. Let's say I like to play basketball. And I can shoot the heck out of those 3-pointers like Steph the Chef. And let's say that you're an electrician. But you have a son that wants to shoot the ball like Steph the Chef. And my electrical stuff in my house is all out of whack. Let's just exchange services.
Right.
And we all get paid. So United Nations plans on matching the strengths to cover everyone's weaknesses in an exchange, and just have just a little bit of referral fee right in there. Not multi-level marketing though. We're not with that. But we are with direct referrals. All right, what's next? Next page. How does the money flow? Go ahead and take, another 30 seconds to go over the money and how it flows. Just follow all the crazy arrows. All right, we good? I know it was kind of crazy. we're gonna explain. So, there's three basic entities. Foundation, a bank, and a for-profit, and there's one with a limited liability company. This limited liability company has the bylaws of a co-op. The basics of a co-op is one member, one vote, and it's a democracy. You get to vote for who's gonna represent you. So with that said, we wanna circulate all the money within those three entities within our own community. Three major entities. With that said, we can divide this paper basically in half. This is the nonprofit side, this is the for-profit side. We're gonna ask absolutely everybody that has the spirit of collaboration to invest. We're gonna ask absolutely everyone with the spirit of collaboration to invest four things: their time, their talent, their treasure, which is their cash, or the would-be taxes. The would-be taxes goes where? In the foundation, so they can get a tax deduction. The cash is gonna go into the limited liability company, for profit. Your talent and your treasure, we want you to perform within the community so we can recycle our own talent and pools and treasure. And keep everything going like that. See how that works?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's say that we have a major donor that at the end of the year they want to get their tax return, their tax deduction. So private foundations like nonprofit 501c3s, which I believe you have one, they can actually invest in a for-profit. And in return for the investment, can get equity from that for-profit in the form of a profit to keep their nonprofit going. From an IRS point of view, which I'm not legally qualified to say, isn't that right, Dr. Sheeman? Foundations have what's called program-related investments, PRI. You may want to Google that, since you have one. That's a concept in which that can occur. The idea is to get $100 million and to buy up the land. Right here locally. So there's 10 things that we want to do. I didn't list them as what we do, but there's 10 things that we want to do, that we must do. Number one, we have to own and control the land. We want to own and control the land, including the air, water, and mineral rights of the land. Number two, we want to build on the land. That's where you come in. That's the construction, building, trade industry. Number three, we want to do business on the land. That's social enterprise. A social enterprise. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. We want to educate our own people, mentor our own people, train our own people, hire our own people, so that we can recycle our own dollars within our own community and take full responsibility and accountability for the design, the building, and the maintenance of our own community, utilizing the strengths of our own people within the community. Okay. And we want to do that without gentrification. So we want everyone to have an ownership called an equity position. ownership equals equity. Equity equals ownership. And with that, one member, one vote. So with that type of money, we want to have our own bank. And so you go down under UHN, which stands for United Nations Limited Liability Co-op Model, private equity funds. We want to have a bank, like a commercial bank. And an example of a commercial bank is One West Bank, and a co-op bank. One example of that is Southland Co-op. We talked to both of them. And then that way we can fund everything that we want to fund, including all of our social enterprises. The other half of that is the foundation side. On the foundation side, we want to have our own grant writing division. That's all they do all day, is write grants. They write grants to private foundations, to the 4 levels of city government: the city, the county, the state, and the feds. All those RFPs.
Actually, there's 5. They're international organizations that do make contributions to United States entities.
That's so true. With that said, with all that money flowing around, we want to set up our own private equity fund and any other type of fund that you can think of. An endowment fund, a community trust fund that we used to have in the 20s and the 30s. Any type of fund that you can think of. And we want to buy the block. There's 2 things that are in play right now to buy the block. To buy the block, Obama in the 2013 Jobs Tax Act, in the year 2013, he made it possible so that ordinary citizens like us, not rich people, we're going to get to rich people in a minute, can pool all their money together in a fund like a GoFundMe fund. Everybody familiar with GoFundMe? That was from a direct result from the 2013 Obama's Jobs Act. So we can do that. And a particular fund that we're looking at is Buy the Block. Google that one.
Right now?
Then Trump comes along.
If you so
Oh, you're
choose.
going to be doing some Googling. So you may want to write all that stuff down. So Trump comes along 2017, and he has what's called an opportunity zones, and which we can create opportunity zone funds to invest in the opportunity zones. We're going to get to opportunity zones. I'm going to tweak that a little bit, and I'm going to call that ground zero. And then I'm going to define what ground zero is in a minute. The idea is that if you're got what's called capital gains tax obligations, and you acquire capital gains tax obligations by selling real estate, by selling stocks and bonds, by selling your art collection, and now you owe the IRS a bunch of money for taxes. So instead of paying these capital gains to IRS under 2017 Jobs Tax Act of Trump, you can now put it in an opportunity zone fund. That opportunity zone fund can then invest it in the opportunity zone, which I'm going to call ground zero, and buy up everything. I mean everything. Tax-free. Under certain conditions.
What are those conditions?
Well, one of the conditions is that you have to keep it in that fund or keep it in that zone for at least 10 years. It's been estimated that $6 trillion is available from gazillionaires like Donald Trump and the 1%ers that have capital gains tax obligations to be put in a capital opportunity zone fund to make it possible to buy up the hood, ground zero. So from a strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, write that down somewhere on your, I should give everybody a blank piece of paper. It's called a SWOT analysis. Opportunity zone funds, in my personal opinion, as a people, black people in particular, it's our greatest strength, it's our greatest weakness, it's our greatest opportunity, and it's our greatest threat. If we don't do it, and we don't do that now, then we're out. Gentrification on steroids. And if you look and see what's happening right now, you can see gentrification all over the place. That's why we have to buy the block and do those 10 things.
Which block?
We're going to start with ground zero, where the opportunity zone is, so that we can empower the Crips and Bloods with the legitimate moral and ethical form of income and create our own local sustainable economy, which is our original intent and purpose. We good? All right. So with that, we're going to circle the money just like this. All right. What's next? OPS, Reentry Intensive Case Management Services, RICMS. Overview. Go ahead and take, 30 seconds and read that one?
Okay.
Everything is double-sided.
Okay, thank you.
And for your new attendees, I'm streaming this. So if you would like to go to the Facebook, you can get it from the beginning.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And the opposite of that is, if they don't want it to be streamed, then what?
Oh, well, if you don't, let me know now if you don't want to be streamed.
How are we doing on the money? On the reentry?
Andrew. Yeah. Yes, it's in there. Password is password.
All right, we good? Let me give another caveat. So, I'm a probation officer, but I worked for LA County Probation for 32 years. I'm currently working for LA County Probation. For 29 of those 32 years, I've been getting jobs for what we call high-risk repeat criminal offenders, mostly gang members. Mostly in the construction building trade industry. With that said, I'm going to frame it for you right here. LA County is what, like the 16th largest economy in the world? Somewhere in there. And population-wise, with our 10, 12 million, depending on how you want to count them, we're bigger. We have more people than 43 states in the United States. LA County. LA County Probation is the largest probation department in the world. And it's connected to the largest jail system in the world. which is connected to the largest prison system in the world. Now, fortunately for us, we've been working diligently to flip our criminal justice system over here in LA County so that we're no longer locking people up and throwing away the key. We do lock people up and throw away the key. But now we're getting jobs and education to break the cycle of what we call those repeat criminal offenders, which is the definition of recidivism. So instead of locking people up at, say, $80,000 per year, we're taking about 30% of that money and we're putting it in one portal. And that portal is right here.
Where were you pointing to so I can reference?
Go to LA County Small Business Vendor Registration. And on the left side, click on Preference Programs and get certified for as many certifications as you can, but especially social enterprise. Because what is it that we want to do? We want to educate, mentor, train, hire our own people to recycle our own dollars where? In our own community. And you can get paid for it. With your small business. Non-profit or for-profit. Small business. And how much can you get paid? $300 per month per client. At a ratio of 30 clients to one of your staff. Somebody do the math for me. How much is that per month? That's $9,000
Per what?
per month for 30 clients.
Per client?
No,
No.
30 clients.
Oh, okay.
That's a pretty good small business. That's pretty decent money. And what services are we actually asking to provide? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All right, you got any questions on that? Because a whole lot of money is going through that portal. And instead of locking people up, let's get paid to take care of our own people. Let's do it collectively. Individually as well as collectively. Got any questions on that? Good. Alright, with that said, I'm going to put on my preacher's hat. So for my own personal opinions, my own core values, my own personal belief system, I take everything to the cross from a black liberation theology point of view. At the cross, I'm going to ask all my questions and get them all answered biblically, scripturally, through my own interpretation of what's biblical, scriptural. I'm going to ask, what is the spiritual root cause of the problem? What is the social root cause of the problem? What is the economic root cause of the problem? And when I see you individually, if you decide to join, I'm going to ask you that. From your own personal opinion, your own core values, your own personal belief system, I'm going to ask you that. But as a probation officer, I've noticed and I've asked this one question. What happens to a community when jobs disappears from that community? Yes.
The community disappears.
There it is. Let's broaden that question out. What happens to any community when jobs disappears from that community?
Crime goes up and
There you go.
Let's make that personal. What happens to my community when jobs disappears from my community?
Brand goes up.
And let's broaden that concept out. What happens to our community when jobs disappears from our community?
Crime goes up.
What happens to the unemployment rate
That
when
goes
jobs
up.
disappear?
That goes,
It goes up.
What happens to the high school dropout rate? We're gonna call uneducation.
or miseducation, but that's another story.
What happens to the poverty welfare rate when jobs disappears?
Rate goes up.
So whatever the issue is that's negative, what happens to it when
Increase.
jobs disappears?
Increases.
It goes up. Let's correlate these four socio-economic factors and conditions. Unemployment, crime, poverty, high school dropouts, or uneducation and unemployment. What does that look like to you?
The hood.
Go ahead, shout it out. What does that look like to you?
Opportunities though?
Yes, it does.
I like the way you
That
phrase
is the opportunity zone right there. We're gonna get there. It's a downward spiraling cycle. It's a vicious downward spiraling cycle. Is unemployment related to poverty?
it. Directly.
Is poverty related to unemployment?
Directly.
Is crime related to high school dropouts
Yeah.
or uneducation? Is uneducation related to crime?
Yes.
So much so that by the third grade, if you're not reading at the third grade level when you're 7, 8, or 9 in the third grade, your chances of dropping out of high school is way up here. And once you drop out of high school, your chances of going to prison, they call it the school to prison pipeline, is way up here. Third grade test scores, 8th grade when the hormones kick in, 12th grade. That's where we want to catch this uneducation right here. When do Crips and Bloods become Crips and Bloods? Somewhere between 3rd grade and 8th grade. All right. You see where these four factors converge? Okay. We're going to call that ground zero. We're going to use ground zero and write a circumference around that. And this circle right here around ground zero is a community. This community is known for its high crime, high gang, and high narcotic activity. That feeds as a baseline our crime rate, our poverty welfare rate, our high school dropout rate, and our unemployment rate. This is a known community right there. In fact, the closer you are physically to ground zero, then the higher the crime rate, the higher the poverty rate, the higher the dropout rate, and the higher the unemployment rate is. Physically, the farther away you are from ground zero, guess what happens? The crime rate goes down. The poverty rate goes down. The unemployment rate goes down. The high school dropout rate goes down. What do real estate people call that? In the real estate industry, they call it location, location, and location, which determines the value. Are you with me? Now, probation officer, I noticed this, that over half of our high-risk repeat criminal offenders come from ground zero, which is 8 blocks this way and 8 blocks that way. Can you imagine that? I've been a probation officer for 32 years, and half come from 8 blocks this way and 8 blocks that way of high-risk repeat criminal offenders. With that said, if we want, now that we identify the community, let's identify the population within that community. Just by adding 3 more variables: age, race, and gender. Guess what the age, race, and gender of that community is? That feeds our criminal justice system, our unemployment, our high school dropouts, and our poverty. I'm going to tell you. Age is young, the race is black, and the gender is male. Young black males, they look like Trayvon Martin wearing a hoodie. That's the number one target right there. When young black men, usually it's around 18 to 25 years of age, they're extracted out of that community and going to jail and prison to the tipping point, then it's young Hispanic males. They're extracted out to the tipping point, and it's young black females. They're extracted out, young Hispanic females. By that time, the young black males come back to the same community, and the cycle repeats itself. Generation after generation after generation. So now we have generational unemployment, generational poverty and welfare, generational high school dropouts, and generational crime. We want to break that cycle. And we want to do it right here. And how are we going to do it? Let's change two variables. Let's change unemployment to employment. Let's change uneducation to education. Jobs and education will overcome crime and poverty for the targeted population within that targeted community. Every single time, we're not guessing what works, that's what works. In other words, jobs have to increase. Education has to increase in order to decrease poverty, in order to decrease crime. It's called an inverse relationship. In other words, when jobs and education is high, like you're on a seesaw teeter-totter, when jobs and education is high, guess what's low? When crime and poverty is high, guess what's low? We're not guessing. We don't have to guess. It's an inverse relationship. You can figure it out mathematically. Speaking of math, if this is ground zero, and this point is zero, which is the nexus point of these four socioeconomic factors, anything to the right of zero is a positive number. Anything to the left of zero is a negative number. Therefore, we can map this whole thing out. We can graft it out based on those four factors. And that's called the function of x in order to find the value of y. So now this becomes a predictive model. Does that make sense? Now we can predict our community. And we can measure it. You got any questions on that? Are you sure? Did you learn that in school?
Yes.
You learned that in school?
Well, the graph and the inverse relations and the function x and y.
I learned that my first 8 weeks in probation boot camp. And I said, well, if we know that for 32 years, why are we locking people up and throwing away the key? With your taxpaying dollars. Why don't we just increase employment and education? Right here. Which is what we plan to do. You got this?
Mm-hmm.
We good? All righty. So why do you think we didn't do that? As a criminal justice system?
You didn't intend to.
With the prison industrial complex.
Say that again.
The prison industrial complex.
That's right. It's all about the money. We're going to get to the money right about now. All right. Let's talk about structural systemic institutionalized race, and we're going to put an ism on top of that. Structural, systemic, institutionalized racism. Just in case you don't know, now you know. Race, from a biblical point of view, there's only one race. What's the human race? What about 500 years ago, somebody came up with race as white supremacy. And then they created a structure and a system and institutionalized that whole thing of white supremacy in order to extract the resources or the wealth from one group to transfer it to another. Those resources come in three forms: people, land, and capital. People, land, and capital is being extracted from one group to another group under this man-made concept of race. The ism is the structure, the systemic, and the institutions, or the systems and the institutions of that process to extract that wealth. That's what the isms are. What kind of isms are we talking about? Imperialism, colonialism, racism, obviously, classism, sexism, whatever that ism is, including capitalism. Don't get me wrong, I'm still a capitalist. Has been used in the last 5, 6, some people are going to argue 1,000 years, to extract the wealth. And it really started with the Western civilization. That's when the Greeks took over the world, so-called known world. Following the Greek Empire was the Roman Empire. Following the Roman Empire was Great Britain. Great Britain then kind of broke up, you know, to all the Europeans, which is why I speak English, and my last name is what?
Carson.
Now, if I was speaking Spanish, then what would that be? Spain. If I was speaking French, then what would that be? France. If I was speaking Portuguese. We on the same page? History-wise, did they teach you that in history? That's what I'm talking about. Good education over there. So this is really what we're up against. And this meeting is to structure the community to be in support of the ceasefire. So we're going to talk about capitalism. So, part of your homework, or make sure you Google the definition of capitalism. Capitalism is not only an economic system, but it's a political system. And capitalism has a predominant structure. From a Western Hemisphere, Western civilization mindset. And we're going to go over the structure. The predominant form of capitalism is a triangle. And it looks like that. At the top of the pyramid, you got your board of directors. Then you got your CEO. Then you got your middle managers. Then you got your worker bees. And that is the predominant structure of capitalism. Whether that's a government agency like the LA County Probation Department, Board of Supervisors, Chief of Probation, middle managers, and myself will worker bee. Whether that's a non-profit organization, your board of directors, your CEO or executive director, your middle managers, and your worker bees. Whether that's a for-profit organization, board of directors, your CEO, manager, worker bees. That's the predominant form of capitalism from this mindset, a Western Hemisphere mindset. With that structure, guess what? 1% is making all the rules, policy, directives, protocols, manuals, you name it. For who?
The 99%.
The 99%. Guess what happens when 1% makes all the rules for 99? If you were making all the rules and you were going to get paid, it is. That's why the 1% have all the money. Google that. Google the wealth of the 1% compared to the 99. Google that. It's shocking. How much wealth, resources, people, land, and capital is being extracted from the 99. What's our answer? We're going to change capitalism, this structure of capitalism, to a circle. We're going to call that circle a co-op. A co-op model. And I want you to Google that. Mondragon co-op system. M-O-N-D-R-A-G-O-N. Mondragon or Mondragon. M-O-N-D-R-A-G-O-N. And in the co-op, it's based on 7 basic principles. Google the 7 basic principles of a co-op. The one that we're going to talk about the most is one member, one vote. Right in the center of that circle. And all of our worker bees are going to look like this. And our worker bees is either going to be a W-2 employee of our corporation. The difference is they're going to have what's called an employee stock ownership participation, an ESOP. Employee stock ownership participation in that corporation. And probably the most important thing besides building ownership is one member equals one vote. But we're also going to have what's called 1099s, vendors. We're going to call them small businesses or social enterprises. And they're also, by this corporation, we're going to figure out which ones get one member equals one vote. What did we just do to all the rules, policies, directives, and all that? What did we just do? in this structure.
We flipped it.
So I seriously doubt that this corporation will downsize its membership and give the profits to the CEO and the board of directors. I seriously doubt that. That they would vote themselves a huge bonus to make that happen. To ship all those jobs over to China, to Taiwan, to Mexico. The NAFTA agreement. You know what I'm talking about? Does that make sense? And guess where we're going to put this structure? We're going to put it at ground zero, where those four socioeconomic factors converge on one spot. Does that make sense? All right. You got any questions on that? What is it that we're here to discover, to do? Structure the community to be in support of a ceasefire. This is the structure. With that said, you need to stretch your legs, bathroom break, any of that? You good?
Yes.
All right, let's keep it pushing. The structure of United Hood Nation. We have a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. We have four main committees. We have a peace council committee made up of those 2,000 or 3,000 Crips and Bloods over here that we're going to call gang truce peacemakers, or the most influential on the block. We have a job creation council. We have an education and literacy council. And we have an interfaith council. These are our four main committees. These are our four functions. A peace council made up of known shot callers, ballers, gang truce negotiators, peacemakers, job creation council, education council, and faith. Why did we settle on these four? Because faith represents our spiritual aspect. Education, literacy represents our social aspect. Job creation represents our economic aspect, and all that equals peace when we combine them all together and meet everybody's needs. That's the formula. Let me put it another way. Jobs create peace. If you agree with that, say amen.
Amen.
Now, if that's true, then no jobs equals no peace. Now, if you want to break the cycle of repeat criminal offenders, then repeat criminal offenders must have a legitimate moral and ethical form of income that sustains themselves, and in my particular case, my wife and 3 kids called a family. Now, if a repeat criminal offender does not have a sustainable income that sustains themselves and their family, there's no way you're going to break that cycle. Zero. Zilch. Nada. It's not going to happen. If you agree with that, say amen.
Amen.
With that said, everybody else is going to support this formula. We're going to start with the inside out, a spiritual base. With that spiritual base, that's where their code of ethics and that code of conduct comes into play. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not lie. I'm missing a few. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not murder. Those are all code of conducts based on a core set of values that we all agreed upon. Everyone's going to support that, and the supporting committee is essentially communications, and that includes website, social media, project management, office database. Internal affairs, and real close to internal affairs is our ethics committee. These two work hand in hand. External affairs, and then our parliamentarian. The parliamentarian is essentially our judicial committee. Each chair of these committees represents their own committee, along with the president, vice president, secretary, and treasury. This would be your executive branch. All chairs of all these committees, including the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary, collectively gets one vote. They all meet, decide on what they want to do, and how they want to do it, called the Ways and Means Committee, which is all these four, and these four. That's our governance structure. Each member, you, can be in any one of these committees, and you vote for your own chair of that committee. The chair then represents your committee. We all meet, we all decide what it is that we want to do collectively. Each committee comes up with their own, essentially their mission, vision, goals, strategies, plan, activities, and budget for those activities. And then presents it to the entire Ways and Means. And then the entire Ways and Means comes up and prioritizes which one of those activities we're going to all get behind to do. Just by simple consensus, one member, one vote. So if you want something done in your committee, you bring it to the chair brings it to the Ways and Means. It's like passing a bill in government. That chair then pushes that bill, does all the political aspects needed for that bill to go through and get funded. Got any questions on the governance of the United Nations and the structure? No question? One member, one vote. You're going to vote for your chair. The chair is going to vote for whatever it is the entire group is going to do. Majority rules. Now we have a constitution that gives the president certain powers. Vice president, certain powers. And the chairs, certain powers. United Good Nation. That's what we're talking about. You got any questions?
When
We
you say
good?
certain powers, is it like veto power or power to, what is?
Yes, we have bylaws in the Constitution. We get you a copy when you become a member. You see the difference of this structure than our predominant form of capitalism of 1% telling 99 what to do? And where we're going to put it, and it's all about capital. It's all about people, land, and capital, resources. All right, we good? All right. Oh, I missed over an important part of where capitalism comes into play. You guys are really good. All right. So you remember how we did ground zero? Right there. And you remember how we put our co-op model at ground zero? And you remember how we have either our W-2 employee stock ownerships with one member, one vote, or our W-2 vendors,
1099 vendors.
1099, you're right, 1099 vendors, one member, one vote, remember that? And that goes right here at ground zero.
Yes.
So this is you. And you can do your regular old form of structure of capitalism, the form of triangle. In fact, you can do your small business, go to this web portal right here, and start bidding on procurement contracts to provide Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the tune of $300 per person per month. So what we're going to do here, since you're the CEO and the managers, is we're going to coordinate all of that. And we're going to coordinate it by tying everybody together. And we're still going to change that triangle to a circle, make that whole system roll. See how that works? So we want you to go out there and get that money. Because we want to suck the money from this system over into this system. Right here at ground zero. Putting into biblical terms a transfer of wealth from the wicked to the just. You like that? Anybody know that scripture?
Say it. Now we do.
We good? We good on that structure? All right. Flip all the papers over, go back to the front page. Flip them all over, go back to the front. Now we're going to read from front to back. It's a lot of information, huh? Now we're going to get into the programs, the concepts. All right. So there's 5 Roman numeral sections. We're going to go over those 5. The very first page. Section number 1. The United Hood Nation, UHN, is patterned after the United Nations. Section number 2, the business entity of UHN will be limited liability modeled after the Mondragon co-op system. Section number 3, the implementation structure of UHN is patterned after the LA Promise Zones. You might as well throw in Opportunity Zone Fund right there. Section number 4, the campaign for this movement initiative of UHN is patterned after Jobs Create Peace and the United Job Creation Initiative. Section number 5, Roman numeral style, the infrastructure design for the implementation of UHN clients is patterned after WorkSource one-stop career centers and day reporting centers as per the Jobs Create Peace flow chart. Turn the page over. Section 1. United Hood Nation is patterned after the United Nations. So what we have done is we have taken what we have seen throughout history that works and what doesn't work, and we model what works. And we just copy and paste. Delete, copy, paste. This is how our United Nations system works. It's on that page right there. Are we there? We're going to skip over that. That'll take forever. Number 2. The business entity of United Hood Nation will be a limited liability company, LLC, patterned after the Mondragon system. All right, on page 3, section 2, it says ULU 10-point appeal and plan for the new black economy. Somebody go ahead and read that because I think that's important. 10-point plan.
I'll take it on. I'm close, I guess. Okay, let's see if we can turn around. The 10-point appeal and plan for the new black economy. Current events and the general unrest of the times call for radical change. The following points provide practical and necessary steps for a new and positive existence for us today and for future generations. Number 1, as black people, we take full responsibility for the economic destiny of our communities and nations. Number 2, black persons and black institutions, especially the black church, join together as members in a large-scale, cooperatively owned business enterprise to pool our resources. Number 3, this cooperatively owned business enterprise is reflective of our unique culture and interest in the world. Number 4, the governance and legal form of the cooperative accommodate democratic principles, one member, one vote, with elected leadership. Number 5, only members of the cooperative and not the public have the opportunity to secure ownership units, equity, in the business enterprise, with the potential to amass billions of dollars for community development. Number 6, the cooperative focuses on opening and operating businesses in local communities that 1, provide needed goods and services, 2, create new jobs, 3, stimulate additional business activity, and 4, yield a fair profit. Number 7, the cooperative is driven to duplicate and expand into hundreds and eventually thousands of businesses, all owned and controlled by the collective. Number 8, the net profits from overall cooperative success are used to 1, 2, for the, and 3, direct returns, dividends, to member owners of the cooperative. Number 9, The large-scale, cooperatively owned, group-owned business enterprise functions as a catalyst and central element in building and sustaining the new black economy.